Hey, it's Drybear. Patch 10.0.7 for Dragonflight is landing next week, which means that we're already off doing testing for the 10.1 PTR, and it's live now if you want to test it out. There's also some raid testing coming this weekend if you're looking forward to that, but there's other notes that we can dive into for the PTR release. So that's what we're going to look at today. If you found value with this video, leave a like down below. It helps me out tremendously. Subscribe for more gaming content. There's a lot more coming your way. And as always, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hey. All right, let's dive into the 10.1 PTR notes for Embers of Neltharion. There's a new zone, Zaralek Cavern. There will be campaign testing for this. They mentioned that there might be some limited access to some of the areas, but we're getting the Forbidden Reach next week. We will be able to test out the Zaralek Cavern on the 10.1 PTR as well. So that's pretty cool. If you want to check out the new zone, you want to see where the raid is, you can check that out as well. The new raid is Aberis, Aberis, the Shadowed Crucible. Millennia ago, Neltharion carved deep places in the earth where he conducted world-altering experience. We know this. We were a part of this. After his death, these sites were lost to time until now. Forces seeking to claim the Earth Order's legacy raid his dominion in search of powerful artifacts. Now the champions of Azeroth must venture deep into the darkness and ensure the Crucible's dangerous power doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So we knew this was coming because they had mentioned that we're going underground for the next one. I actually expected there to be more of the primalist aspect in this, but I guess we'll see once we actually get inside the raid how much that thematic has made its way into the raid itself. We know there's 9 raid bosses. They're already in the dungeon journal, and then we'll be able to test all of them except for the last boss, Scale Commander Sarkareth, which won't be available for testing the PTR. I have a video covering the raid testing schedule on this channel. I'll leave a link in the description if you wanted to check that out. But those are available specific times. There will be specific times for each boss and specific difficulties if you wanted to try the encounters and see how they felt. Crucible class armor sets are available for some of the classes that are already available on the PTR. Death Knight, Havoc Demon Hunter, Druid, Mage, Brewmaster Monk, Holy Paladin, and Protection Paladin armor sets are available, but they have actually listed the tier 2 set bonuses, and those are open for discussion if you want to look at those as well. Class armor sets can be found detailed in the feedback thread. There's also a full thread that they posted over the exact set bonuses that are there, and then yeah, help them out, do the testing and get in there and help them there. Dragonflight Season 2 Mythic Plus, the remaining Dragonflight dungeons will enter the fray. So the 4 that are available in Mythic Plus Season 1 now will be going away. You can still do them on Mythic 0, basic Mythic difficulty, but they won't be part of the Mythic Plus rotation. And the 4 dungeons that were left behind are going to be added into the rotation. Some of these I'm excited about, some of them I'm less excited about, primarily Brackenhide Hollow. I hope they do some balancing for Brackenhide. I'm actually terrified of Brackenhide Hollow on high keys, like 20 plus. I feel like some of the mechanics in there are rough, and it almost requires you to have poison and disease cleansing, which we'll see how that works out based on how we build comps. But in general, that one is coming in. Halls of Infusion should be fun, minus maybe the frog boss in some cases, the magic damage from the Hydromancer fight, and then the gauntlet before the final fight could be really ridiculous on Fortified Weeks. But we'll see how they change that up. Oldemine Legacy a tier. Overall, there's some nice density in this. There's some kind of cheeky mechanics, and I think the difficulty to scaling Mythic Plus will probably be pretty good in general. There's not really any specific thing I'm super worried about. There are some trash pulls in here that have this stone AoE pulse, which on Fortified can get really nasty, I'm sure, but nothing that, at least in my head, predicting forward would be too much of an issue. That wouldn't be like outside of equal to the key level you're doing. And then Neltharion. And I think Neltharion is a great dungeon. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. It's a cool dungeon. There's going to be probably some interesting strategies that go to a few of the bosses, specifically the last one where you have to pick up the gold caches to stun her to get rid of the shield. That is going to be interesting, but that will be for the 4 dungeons in Mythic Plus Season 2. The 4 dungeons that are non-Dragonflight that are coming in will be coming from past expansions. There's a mixed bag here as well. The first is Freehold from Battle for Azeroth. If you don't remember, this is the outdoor pirate dungeon that has trash everywhere. You have the parrot boss, and you have the little encounter where you have to wait for the bosses to walk out, and sharks swim around. This one I'm not too happy about. This is one of my least favorite dungeons from Battle for Azeroth, especially on Mythic Plus, but it's probably better than Court of Stars, but so we're going to get a win there. Underrot, Battle for Azeroth. Overall, I love this dungeon. Thematically, functionally, layout-wise, I love Underrot. There's some cool fights in here, some really tough pulls, especially in the beginning on those bridges coming down to the first boss. Some nasty, nasty things. So I think overall, this should be a fun one for Mythic Plus. Neltharion's Lair from Legion. This is the one where you swim around. It's a little big, so I hope they are pretty generous with the timer on how you move around Neltharion's Lair. There are some ways to cheat it that I remember from Legion Mythic Plus, but it is kind of a nice one. And then Vortex Pinnacle from Cataclysm. I hope that this gets a lot of changes before it goes in. It looks like it won't be available for PTR testing initially on this build that they're putting out. I hope they're doing more content changes because this dungeon was a little rough. It needed to be updated. I feel like there probably should have been more changes for Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. There were some really antiquated things in that dungeon that probably shouldn't have made it into the season, but we adjusted and we made it. So Vortex Pinnacle is going to be the 8th dungeon in next season's rotation. The seasonal affixes are in development and there's some discussions going on that. And again, for this specifically, if you want me to go over the discussion around the seasonal affixes for next season, let me know in the comments and I'll be able to kind of just go over how that discussion is progressing. Thundering is being deleted is the high level, and then there's some other ideas on how they want to maybe interact with not just having Fortified Tyrannical as a mainstay, but possibly a third option. So we'll see kind of how that develops going into 10.1. Classes, Druid Balance. The second Moonfire cast by Twin Moons no longer generates astral power. I guess they were feeling that this was just, in general, getting them too much bonus astral power. With the increase in Moonfire astral power generation in Embers and Neltharion, this doubling of AP is stronger than we intended. So this is along with the change that they'll get for the Moonfire astral power generation. So you don't need to run Twin Moons to get reasonable astral power from Moonfire. So they're just going to dial that back for Twin Moons if you're running it. Feral Druid fixed an issue with Sudden Ambush, fixed an issue with Raging Fury. Pretty cool. I think this one was pretty uncommon, but hurt bad when it happened. So good to see that being updated. And then some descriptions for Pouncing Strikes and Blood Talons, which is cool. Paladin Holy, Avenging Crusader, has been redesigned for Holy. You become the Ultimate Crusader of Light for 12 seconds, Crusader Strike and Judgment cooldown 30% faster, and heal up to 5 injured allies for 750% of the damage done, split evenly among them. If Avenging Wrath is talented, also increase Judgment, Crusader Strike, and auto attack damage. So they're just trying to make Avenging Crusader viable again. It was super good in the last 2 expansions. Hasn't really been used much for Holy Paladin in this expansion, mostly just because the healing out of it isn't super great. And I guess we'll see if the cooldown addition here and then having 750% of the damage healing converted to healing is enough to make this a little bit more viable. But they decided that a rework was the right choice there. Priest, Shadow Word Death has a 10-second cooldown instead of 20. So this is at base. So this will be affected by all the other modifications you can make to Shadow Word Death. Discipline, Enduring Luminescence now also reduces the cast time of Powered Radiance by 30%. This should help tremendously in Mythic Plus, and I would be surprised if Disc aren't running this in Mythic Plus for 10.1. Powered Radiance now has a spell, School of Radiant, which means it can trigger fire effects as well, not just Holy. And there's some other things you can modify with that, which is pretty cool. Shadow Priest, Shadow Crash damage reduced by 70%. And has a 33% reduced cooldown. So this is an overall nerf for Shadow Crash. The damage reduction is far more than the reduction in cooldown, so it will be an overall. Shadow Priest is #1 in all categories right now before 10.0.7, so maybe they're just trying to reduce that, and part of it is just the big, massive AoE damage they can deal, so maybe they just want to kind of cut down on that. Death and Madness, Insanity Generation reduced to 8 instead of 30. Death Madness generates Insanity immediately instead of over 3 seconds. So they're reducing the amount by quite a lot, but making it show up instantly rather than over time. I think a lot of these feel like nerfs. And again, I'm still baffled that they buffed Shadow so much before Shadow fully got, perfect stats towards the end of Season 1. But they're having to deal with that now. Shadow Word Death, which we know has a shorter cooldown now generates 4 Insanity. So they're trying to remove the necessity of taking Death and Madness, and then giving it instant there, and then giving a little bit to Shadow Word Death. Death Speaker trigger rate increased by 50%. Now also increases the damage of Shadow Word Death by 25%. It also temporarily increases the maximum charges of Shadow Word Death by 1, so you can get multiple, and it no longer triggers Death and Madness cooldown. So some pretty interesting reworks there. This probably feels better, but only because we're getting the cooldown reduction on Death, and then you'll be able to get an extra stack of Death. So I'd have to play with this on a dummy to see exactly how this feels. It's probably overall going to be just fine. I think the only thing that's kind of sucks here is the damage reduction on Shadow Crash, but it is probably necessary. New talent, Distorted Reality, increases the damage of Devouring Plague by 20%, but Devouring Plague deals its damage over 12 seconds, and its insanity cost is increased by 25. So this means that Devouring Plague is not as spammable, and the insanity cost is up, but it deals more damage, and it does it over a duration of time. It doesn't say whether this is actually refreshing or not, or how it actually calculates if you double stack over these. It could be that they're trying to get you to have more options for spending your insanity. It isn't just spamming Devouring Plague over and over and over and over through the talent tree. And it also depends on, okay. So it's replacing the spot for Encroaching Shadows. So I'm guessing, it doesn't say here, but I'm guessing that Encroaching Shadows going away, Distorted Reality is taking that spot. This could be kind of interesting for raid in general, or possibly even for certain weeks and certain affixes for Mythic Plus, but I guess we'll see. Devouring Plague instant damage increased by 75%, which means that this could be pretty interesting on that. Surge of Insanity has moved to Encroaching Shadows, or not. Surge of Insanity has moved to Encroaching Shadows position. Surge of Insanity now has a spell alert while active. That's good. Mental Decay now updates the maximum duration of Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch so that the remaining durations are more easily understood. So I guess it doesn't stay here, but I'm curious where Distorted Reality is going to sit in the tree after this change, and maybe we'll find out shortly. I could jump on the PTR on my priest and see, but that's where we're at with that. Shaman Elemental, Flame Shock's Dispel Protection from Control of Lava is now baseline. So the Dispel Protection for Enhancement Elemental on Flame Shock is now baseline. You don't have to run the extra PvP talent. This should be nice for both damage Shaman specs being able to pick up another PvP talent other than just protecting their Flame Shock, which is super important for both in many cases. PvP Hunter Interlope PvP talent has been redesigned. Misdirection now causes your pet to redirect the next 3 hostile spells cast on your target. Misdirection cooldown increases by 15 seconds, and your pet must be within 20 yards of the target. We'll start working on this talent, so maybe a few bugs. I'm curious where they're going with this, because yeah, I'll save my opinions, because this I'm just trying to think about the intent behind this, and I don't know. There's just some oddities around what they're trying to accomplish with this, and generally what they're trying to do with Hunter and PvP. But okay, I'll wait and see where it goes. Frost Mage, Frost Bomb explosion damage increased by 50%. Dispelling Frost Bomb before its explosion now grants a charge of Brain Freeze. That should be kind of nice. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know how often Frost Bomb is used. I haven't played my Frost in PvP in quite a while. So if you're a Frost Mage, let me know what your thoughts are on this Frost Bomb PvP talent down below. Priest in PvP, new PvP talent, Phase Shift. Step into the shadows when you cast Fade, avoiding all attacks and spells for 0.5 seconds. Interrupt effects are not affected by Phase Shift. So this is cool. This is going to be baseline for all Priest specs. This one existed before, and it's super strong, especially for Shadow, because not only do they have Dispersion, but they can also get Phase Shift. And yeah, it's crazy. It's been added to the personal resource display as well. New PvP talent, Absolute Faith. Leap of Faith also pulls the spirit of the 3 furthest allies within 40 yards and distributes health between you and the affected allies. This could be trying to get more priest healers in PvP. I'm curious what the next arena tournament is going to look like for healers in PvP, for arena specifically. But the fact that you have this like pseudo spirit link totem built into your PvP talents for priest is super fun and interesting. We're losing Eternal Rest and Delivered from Evil, which I don't think were run all that much, or at least not much that I've seen have these been used, and that's probably why they're being removed. Shaman Elemental, Stormkeeper increases lightning bolt damage by 30% for Elemental in PvP combat, was 115. So big reduction in Stormkeeper damage for lightning bolt. I think they're still trying to reduce the burst damage that Elemental Shaman has. Casting lightning bolt with Surge of Power causes 1 additional elemental overload in PvP instead of 2. Lightning bolt damage increased by 53%. So they seem to be wanting to do this with all DPS specs, as they want to try and remove the burst window damage, they've done this with a lot of them. And then they focus on more consistent damage. So they're reducing the lightning bolt damage with Surge of Power, the bonus damage you can get. They're reducing the lightning bolt damage from Stormkeeper, and then increasing the base lightning bolt damage for your normal rotation. So overall damage goes up, which, yeah, I mean, elemental shamans are bursty. I think it's time to just jump into Arena and see what's going on here, because they're doing some wacky stuff. New talent, Volcanic Surge, increases the damage of Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, and Lava Burst by 20%. Lava Surge instead reduces the cast time of your next Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, or Lava Burst by 25%, stacking up to 2 times. This could be fun. So I think this is replacing control of lava, because that's baseline, which protects your Flame Shock. And then you get this new one, which means that you can store up either doing a Lightning Bolt, a Chain Lightning, or a Lava Burst with a super fast cast time, with half cast time, and then you also get, so it's some extra bonus there, and it does extra damage. So maybe gives it a little more flexibility in which spell you cast in PvP. Overall, some interesting stuff, but they're doing the same thing they're doing for DPS. Less burst, more consistent damage. Enhancement, Thundercharge PvP has been removed. Warlock, Bane of Fragility has been removed. For Destruction, Cremation has been removed. Demonology, Call Fell Hunter has been removed. Thank God. I never liked Call Fell Hunter. Pleasure Through Pain has been removed, so a lot of PvP talent reworks. In general, I think it's good to see activity in the PvP scene. There's not a crazy amount of changes here. There's some wacky ones here, like the Absolute Faith is going to be fun to play around with. Phase Shift coming back should help all pre-specs, but in general, yes, that's where we're at with that. Several new side quest lines are now available. A Swallow's Tail, Slime Time Live, Mouse Detective, and This Might Sting. All available. This is going to be in the new zone. This is for the new PTR. UI and UX. A ping animation is managed to the map when opened from the quest tracker. Cool. Nice quality of life. Fix an issue with hunter nameplates. Fix an issue with personal resource display. Edit mode. Pet frame can now be removed and moved separately from the player frame. Awesome. Edit mode menu has been reorganized with several options now hidden under advanced options. The visibility toggle of the buff and debuff frames have been combined into one checkbox, but their functionality remains the same. Didn't really need it, but it's nice to have. Encounter bar will stay visible if it's already shown when entering edit mode. Good, there's a bug with that. There's also another bug with edit mode where the extra action button for quests and for encounters, there's some weirdness. I don't know if you're experiencing this in your game, but in edit mode, I move it, but then it'll still show up somewhere else when it pops up, specifically for quest extra action buttons. So let me know if you're having this problem. I'm having it. It's driving me nuts. If I go into certain quests, even after I've moved it in the edit frame, the big button's in the wrong spots, covering stuff. I hope they fix it soon. Options, the graphics quality section has been reorganized into tabs. Nice. Auto self-cast and self-cast settings have been combined into a single drop-down. We actually needed that. Each action bar now has its own keybind section that appears if the action bar is enabled, and mousing over keyboard row will now highlight the corresponding action bar. Oh my God. Now I'm wondering if so what this is if you're mousing over a keybind row in the options menu, it'll let you know what that action bar is by flashing that UI element for you. Super needed. I mean, you can figure it out through trial and error. And I'm curious if this functionality will extend to things like Bartender or any add-ons you use that affect the action bars, since they kind of play with that data a little bit differently. But overall, that's pretty cool. So we've got some cool stuff coming for PvP, some balance changes. We have the new season 2 set up here, and they're still having discussions around the affixes. And then we also have new class armor sets. You can go check out the new set bonuses as well. The new raid is out and ready for testing on 10.1, starting today, actually, if you want to go check that out. And the new patch there. So there you go. That's it for 10.1 PTR update. Let me know if you have any questions. You can stop by my live stream every day, twitch.tv/Drybear, if you have any questions or comments for me. And that's it for me today. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.